She wasn't a monster, but they locked her up for her genes until a human listened. The holding cell smelled like fear and metal and something else that Kira couldn't quite name in any language she knew. She sat in the corner with her knees pulled up to her chest and her silver skin catching the harsh white lights that never turned off. The council had decided 3 cycles ago that she was too dangerous to walk free among her own people. Not because of anything she had done, but because of what her bloodline carried. The genetic markers in her DNA showed traces of the ancient Vec species, a race that had nearly destroyed the galaxy, 2,000 years before they went extinct. It didn't matter that Kira had never hurt anyone, or that she spent her days working in the botanical gardens tending to dying plants and bringing them back to life. All that mattered to the Valdari Council was the sequence in her cells. She was one of 12 people on her homeworld who carried the markers, and all 12 had been taken from their homes in the middle of the night. The others were in cells just like hers scattered throughout the facility. Kira had stopped counting the days after the first 100. She pressed her forehead against her knees and tried to remember what the sun felt like on her face. The door to her cell made a soft hissing sound as it opened. Kira didn't look up because she assumed it was another council member coming to ask the same questions they always asked. Do you feel violent urges? Have you experienced any unusual abilities? Do you dream of destruction? The answer was always no, but they never believed her. Footsteps approached her and stopped a few feet away. A voice spoke in Galactic Common, but with an accent she had never heard before. My name is Lily Carter, and I'm from Earth. Kira lifted her head slowly. The woman standing in front of her was shorter than most species Kira had encountered, with tan skin and dark hair pulled back in a simple tie. She wore a gray uniform with a small blue patch on the shoulder that showed a planet Kira didn't recognize. The human woman held a small device in her hand, but she wasn't pointing it at Kira like a weapon. She was just standing there with patient brown eyes and a slight smile that looked almost sad. Kira found her voice after a long moment. What do you want from me? Lily crouched down so they were at eye level. I want to hear your story and not the one the council keeps telling everyone. Kira stared at her because, in all the time she had been locked away, no one had ever asked her that. They told me you were dangerous. Lily continued, but when I pulled your records, all I found was a botanist who never even got a speeding ticket. Kira felt something tight in her chest loosened just a little. They say my genes make me a threat. Lily nodded slowly. Yeah, I read that part. And I also read that the Vec have been extinct for 2 millennia, and that genetic markers don't determine behaviors. He paused and then added, we had a similar problem on Earth a long time ago when people were judged by things they couldn't control, like their ancestry or the color of their skin. It didn't end well. Kira searched the human's face for any sign of deception but found none. Why are you here? Lily sat down cross-legged on the floor. Because my government sent me to evaluate the situation, and because I don't think locking people up for their DNA is justice. She pulled up a holographic display from her device showing charts and graphs that Kira didn't understand. Had been studying the Vec genetic sequences for the past month. And you know what I found? Kira shook her head. The traits that made them aggressive were linked to a completely different chromosome than the markers you carry. The markers in your DNA are actually connected to enhanced cognitive processing and cellular regeneration. That's why you're so good with plants, because you can sense what they need on a level most species can't. Kira felt tears forming in her eyes because no one had ever tried to understand. They just saw the Vec label and decided she was guilty. Lily continued talking, her voice gentle but firm. I spoke with the council this morning and told them my findings. They weren't happy about it. But Earth has significant trade agreements with the Valdari, and they can afford to ignore us. She smiled, a real smile this time. So I'm getting you and the other 11 out of here? Kira couldn't breathe. What? Lily stood up and extended her hand. You're free to go, and not just from this cell, but from the whole guilty until proven innocent situation. Earth is offering asylum to anyone with the Vec markers who wants it. We have botanical research stations that would love someone with your abilities. Kira took the human's hand and let herself be pulled to her feet. Her legs shook because she hadn't stood for more than a few minutes in months. Why would you do this for us? Lily squeezed her hand gently. Because someone has to stand up and say this is wrong, and humans have learned the hard way. What happens when we don't? Over the next few hours, Kira watched as Lily and a team of human diplomats processed the release of all 12 prisoners. The Valdari Council members stood to the side with tight expressions, but they didn't interfere when Kira finally stepped outside the facility. The sun was setting and the sky was painted in shades of purple and orange. She stood there, breathing in air that didn't taste like recycled fear, and felt the warmth on her silver skin. Lily walked up beside her. "You okay?" Kira nodded because she didn't trust her voice. The human smiled and handed her a small data chip. "That's information about the research station on Earth's moon and contact details, if you want to take us up on the offer." "No pressure, though." Kira took the chip and held it tight. "Thank you." Lily shrugged like it was nothing, just doing what's right, and, "Hey, maybe you'll teach us a thing or two about keeping plants alive because humans are terrible at it." Kira laughed, and it felt strange after so long without joy. As the human ship prepared to depart, Kira stood with the other freed prisoners and watched the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. For the first time in cycles, she felt something she thought she had lost: forever hope. And it had come from the most unexpected place, from a species that understood what it meant to be judged unfairly, and had chosen to be better. Kira looked down at the data chip in her hand and made her decision. She was going to Earth.